Over the world.
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 I warmly welcome you to my new channel, and I hope with all my heart that you will have a good time here. And if you feel fun while watching my channel, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel. This new channel was opened for 2 reasons. The first, to make you feel entertained, learn, have fun and discover new things. Second, to help my parents pay for my university studies. Thanks for your time.
To read the phrase "this movie is based on real events" completely changes the experience of watching horror movies. Then the mind is forced to deal with the reality and not just a sequence of events. We realize deep down that it is just good directing and professional illusions. There is no doubt that horror movies are one of the most important pillars on which the film industry around the world is based. Since the presentation of the first horror films in history, the film The Haunted Castle, produced in 1896, whose duration does not exceed 3 minutes, and horror films, especially those based on real facts and stories related to supernatural phenomena and hidden worlds, occupy a special place among a wide sector of fans of this type of art, whose works must have a dramatic plot and great effort at the level of accessories and external influences, to freeze the blood in the veins of its viewers. In the following video, we review 10 horror films based on true stories. 1. A Nightmare on Elm Street. This movie has become an icon in the horror genre, with the character of Freddy Krueger making his first appearance in this movie. It was originally just an idea inspired by the character's creator, director and writer Wes Craven, from a real tragedy that actually happened. After a family survived a horrific massacre, the child could not sleep for several days for fear of the thing chasing him in the dream. Everyone tolerated the tragedy of the child, who could not stay awake any longer and fell asleep, only to find him dead in his sleep. From this unfortunate incident, Craven created the character Krueger, who was killing children until the parents managed to catch and burn him. But he returns from the other world in order to kill the teenagers in their dreams. The film grossed more than $25 million, which is a huge success considering that its budget did not exceed $2 million. The film was released in 1984 and has a rating of 7.5 on IMDb. 2. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Nightmare movie starring Laura Linney and Tom Wilkinson. Although relatively recent, 2005, it is based on real events that actually occurred in 1976 for a 23-year-old girl. The film has a rating of 6.7 on IMDb, but despite the average rating, it grossed over $144 million worldwide, while the film's budget was about $20 million. The film takes place in the courtroom between a priest and parents, who are accused of the negligent murder of Emily Rose. They let her starve to death, and the priest begins to recount the terrible events he witnessed in the girl's exorcisms. In the real accident, the girl, Annalise Michelle, was suffering from seizures, who was diagnosed with epilepsy. After receiving treatment, the girl's condition did not improve, but rather worsened. She started talking about a vision that she had and hearing voices telling her that she was wrong, so she turned to religion so that she would kneel 600 times a day, which exposed her to a rupture of the knee ligaments. Her condition continued to deteriorate, and she was treated for dozens of diseases and attended 67 exorcism sessions. Some of these sessions were audio recorded, and eventually the girl went on a hunger strike to death. After her death, her parents and the 2 priests responsible for the exorcisms were tried for the neglect that led to the death of the girl, by leaving her without food for a long time and not seeking help from specialists. 3. Poltergeist. The film revolves around a small family living in a house where they find that things are flying alone around the house, as the Herman family claimed that the house is haunted by angry ghosts, as stated in the Mirror paper. These ghosts expressed their anger by throwing furniture and items around the house. Then the sounds disappeared as suddenly as they had begun, but despite this the family moved out of the house. The family suggested that the ghosts had something to do with an ancient Native American cemetery near the house. The film's revenues exceeded $76 million for a budget of only $11 million, making it the 8th in the list of the highest-grossing films of the year 1982. It was also nominated for 3 Oscars, none of which was awarded, but won the BAFTA award for Best Visual Effects. It has a rating of 7.4 on IMDb, and the film's clown scene is ranked 80th in the list of the scariest movie scenes. 4. The Amityville Horror. We're still with the haunted houses, and this time a story inspired by the tragedy of the Defoe and Lutz families. In 1974, young Ronald Defoe Jr. murdered his entire family in their sleep with his father's rifle. He completed this crime at 3:15 a.m., and upon his arrest he said that the voices coming from the house told him to do so. The house was vacant for 13 months, until it was finally rented by the Lutz family, who from their first day witnessed numerous paranormal evidence. The father would wake up every day at 3:15, for example, to the sound of a gunshot. The last straw for the family was that their little girl was playing with an imaginary friend named Judy. Judy is the same name as Defoe's sister whom he killed, causing the family to flee the house just 28 days after they moved in. The movie was produced in 1979, and it has a rating of 6.2 on IMDb. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Score, but did not receive it, and despite that, it earned more than $86 million for a budget of no more than $5 million. The film was followed by several other films revolving around the same idea, based on several books with the same or even other names, but all revolving around the same horrifying house. 5. Annabelle. It suffices us to be terrified that the movie revolves around dolls possessed by an evil spirit and we leave them in children's rooms. What if the movie is actually based on a real fact? The film revolves around a family who buys a porcelain doll, and then the girl next door, who embraced strange religious ideas, is killed while embracing the doll. After a while, the family goes through a series of terrifying events, the center of which is the doll and the family's new baby. The film attempts to provide an interpretation of the doll's true story that took place in 1970. It started when a mother gave her nurse daughter a doll made of porcelain, and the girl began to notice strange things about her gift. The nurse noticed that the doll was changing from the position she left it on, then began to find scraps of paper that read "Help me," and finally found drops of blood leaking from the doll. Then she decided to hire experts on supernatural things, who assured her that this doll is harmless and is not inhabited by an evil spirit, but there is a spirit that enjoys manipulating it. The experts got rid of this wandering spirit and kept the doll in the Museum of the Marvelous of America. It is worth noting that the real shape of the doll is less terrifying than the one that appeared in the movie, as it was an ordinary children's toy. The movie did not get a good rating on IMDb. Viewers rated it only 5.4. But the film's budget, which was estimated at about $6.5 million, earned more than $84 million in revenue in America alone, and more than $256 million worldwide. 6. The Girl Next Door. This movie, which has a rating of 6.7 on IMDb, may be the most terrifying on the list, as the humans we live with are the creators of this horror. The film revolves around a woman who tortures a girl under her care, and forces her children and some of the neighborhood's children to participate in her torture parties for the girl. But the girl eventually dies and the police find out what this woman did. The film is based on the novel of the same name, which the writer wrote based on a real heinous crime that took place in the United States. At the time, the crime was ranked as the most heinous in Indiana, where it took place. The real crime took place in 1965 when sisters Sylvia and Jenny Lynx were forced to live in the house of a neighbor, who had 7 children, for a sum of money each week. But this woman and her children tortured Sylvia in the most horrific way, and even creative in it. Sylvia's body was eventually found dehydrated, emaciated, and riddled with wounds. 7. When a Stranger Calls. The film has 2 copies, one produced in 1979, with a rating of 6.5 on IMDb, and the other film produced in 2006 with a rating of 5.1 on IMDb. They both revolve around the same idea: a babysitter receives phone calls telling her to check on the children. The film is based on the urban legend of babysitters who receive strange phone calls, ending in a murder. This legend has been around since the 1950s, after the 13-year-old Janet Christman was murdered. According to the Tribune newspaper, she was babysitting a 3-year-old boy, and when his parents came back from outside, they found the house in disarray and the girl was killed. The police suspected one of the girl's friends, but could not prove the charge against him, turning the crime into an urban legend that terrifies the babysitters. 8. Veronica. A Spanish film with a rating of 6.2 on IMDb. It is about a teenage girl who uses a Ouija board with her 2 female friends, to communicate with their deceased loved ones. After that, her life begins to transform and is haunted by evil forces. She notices strange signs in her body and threatens the lives of her brothers. The film is based on a true story that took place in 1991 of a Spanish girl named Estefania Gutierrez. She died in hospital several months after a Ouija experience similar to what happened in the movie, and before she died she had seizures while saying that she saw ghosts. The interesting thing is that a year after the death of the girl, her family reported seeing spectra as their late daughter, and indeed the police confirmed this and could not explain it. 9. The Entity. One of the most powerful horror films produced by Hollywood in the 80s of the last century, as it was produced in 1982, and its events date back to a true story that took place in the 70s, where a married woman lived in a house haunted by evil spirits, and she felt that she was being sexually raped on a daily basis, and her husband could not believe her. She was shown to a psychiatrist, and with the wife's health condition not improving and the signs and bruises on her body, the husband began to believe that there was something abnormal inside the house already. 10. Deliver Us from Evil. One of the most terrifying American horror films for sure. It is based on a true story where, during the American War on Iraq, an American soldier was subjected to a spell from inside one of the Iraqi caves that contain ancient antiquities. Strange events begin to appear when the soldiers return to the United States again, and both Officer Alf and Reverend Mendoza unite in the face of spirits sinister. So the next time you pick a weekend horror movie, ask yourself first, then Google, is it based on real events?